Whoopi once again has been caught being even dumber than we thought. Watch as she claims blacks in America have it worse than women in Iran. Roll it, Phyllis.
Let's just remember, too, the Iranians literally throw gay people off of buildings. They don't adhere to basic human rights.
Listen, here's the thing. Let's not do that, because if we start with that, we have been known in this country to tie gay folks to the car.
Where the Iranian regime is 2 days, 2025, is nothing compared to the United States.
Hanging black people.
Girls, girls, girls. Whoopi, you know you're on the very wrong side of history, even when the fake Republican disagrees with you. I haven't seen Whoopi wave her fingers like that since someone offered her a salad. But apparently that's a technique for summoning the demon associated with talking out of your ass. Even Alyssa couldn't tolerate the examples Whoopi made out of thin air, or since it's Whoopi, fat air. Cat.
It all started on an ordinary day at The View. Cameras rolled, the coffee cups were full, and Whoopi Goldberg leaned into one of her signature monologues. But this time, she took it way too far.
At The View, Whoopi Goldberg insisted that life in the U.S. is just as brutal as living in Iran. Well, in that case, lady, from now on, please cover your face.
In front of a live audience, she said something so wild, it practically froze the room. Whoopi claimed that black Americans have it just as bad or even worse than women living under Iran's brutal regime. Yes, Iran. The country where women get jailed for not wearing a headscarf, where protesters disappear, and gay people are literally thrown off rooftops. And here she was, sitting on a sunny New York soundstage, equating that level of state violence with living in America.
Hold on, Greg. First of all, I'd just like to say that for the many people that I have tied to cars, I never ask them about their sexuality.
Thank you.
Never once.
And that's very progressive of you.
Yes, happy Pride Month. Listen, I love... Whoopi's right. I mean, it's been rough for us. I mean, you saw what just happened to me in the last segment. I'm trying to talk, and all the white people are like, "Oh, it's Tyrus. I can make a phone call." You know? And it's.
How did that make you feel?
I felt very black.
Did
Greg.
you feel black?
Yeah,
Now, the other host tried to push back gently, but Whoopi doubled down, brushing aside horrifying examples of human rights abuse like they were footnotes. And that's when the real fireworks began. By the way, before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and share more intriguing stories. Now, let's continue.
He gets the game ball. If it wasn't for her, if it wasn't for her asking that question, it might have been a closer election. But when oh no, nothing really comes to mind, I was like, cha-ching. Listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be, this should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last, they call them Hitler, they call these things, America rejected them. And instead of coming back and saying, we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're gonna keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing.
Back to the show. You could practically hear the internet screaming. But the real reaction didn't come from random Twitter threads. It came from the tag team takedown of Gutfeld and Tyrus. And what they did next wasn't just criticism, it was full-blown demolition. A televised roast that stripped away every inch of Whoopi's argument and left it smoking on the studio floor. And the moment they stepped in, things turned from awkward to absolutely explosive.
very black.
Did
Greg.
you feel black?
Yeah,
It's word, Tyrus. Malice just started snapping
By the way,
his fingers for
thank
you.
God black people don't do that in audiences.
Yes, yeah. No, we just talk the whole time and tell you how to do your show better. Oh, that's what I get paid to do. But it's only in America can a black person sit on a TV show getting paid millions and millions of dollars to have the floor and can say, it can interrupt people because she interrupted her.
Yeah.
And if according to her, life was like in Iran it was for black people, her interrupting and speaking in public would have led to a stoning.
Yeah.
Gutfeld and Tyrus didn't tiptoe in, they slammed the door open and came in swinging. It wasn't just a rebuttal, it was like watching a comedy roast hosted in a courtroom. And their target? Whoopi's last shred of credibility. Tyrus called her out like a WWE commentator, mocking her tone, her logic, even her signature finger waving. Gutfeld piled on, calling her soft delivery faux compassion, loaded with just enough emotional dressing to distract from the lack of substance underneath. They weren't letting her off easy. They took that one comparison, Black Americans versus women in Iran, and treated it like a jigsaw puzzle made of nonsense. Every piece out of place, every word more confusing than the last. Gutfeld joked that her statements felt like they were written by a raccoon in a soap opera writer's room.
It's about the view. It's become like a medical hospital that displays human misfailure. Here, let's look at this political oddity. You know, it's like it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that. But The View is a victim of the...
And he wasn't wrong. Then came Alyssa Farah Griffin, who's not exactly a fan favorite on the right. Even she looked visibly uncomfortable, cringing at the logic Whoopi was spinning on live television. That's when the audience could tell something had really gone sideways. Because when the most moderate person on the panel can't nod along, you've officially lost the room. From there, Tyrus and Gutfeld ripped into Whoopi's attempt at nuanced concern. They mocked her uncertain pauses, the weird sighs, the dramatic maybes that led absolutely nowhere.
It's about the view. It's become like a medical hospital that displays human misfailure. Here, let's look at this political oddity. You know, it's like it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that. But The View is a victim of the sun.
It was like watching someone try to teach calculus using finger paints. They called it out for exactly what it was: pure, performative theater. And they were just getting started. Now the gloves were off, and Gutfeld went in for the logical knockout. He didn't just say Whoopi was wrong, he dissected how badly wrong she was, layer by layer.
View, you don't need to find Trumpers. You need to fire your race baiters.
Yeah.
You need to fire the two races. You've had people. You had a McCain on there. You've had people on there before, and you ran them off. Mm-hmm. So the racist ones who want to stick to this, Whoopi and Sonny, and the, was it Bette Midler? What's her name? Yeah, broke-ass Bette Midler. Fire them and bring people in. Maybe you could get McCain to come back. She was a Republican, but every show and every break, she was nearly in tears because she was being attacked. You have to go after the racist people. Be the CEO goes, you know what? I'm not going to allow a woman on my show, or man, that will go after white America and talk about them like dogs. That doesn't represent our ideals or values.
He laid out her argument like a funhouse map, full of twists, turns, and dead ends. It wasn't even a debate anymore. It was like watching someone get lost in a maze they built themselves. Tyrus added his signature deadpan heat, walking through her thought process like a tour guide in a museum of bad metaphors. He joked that trying to follow Whoopi's logic felt like taking one step forward, 2 steps sideways, and then tripping backward into a wall of contradictions.
Yeah, that's heroically stupid. Even for The View. What did she think Hitler meant when he said master race? The 100-meter dash at the Berlin Olympics? So for the first time in The View's history, it's not about race. Just some whites exterminating 6 million other whites. So what's the big deal? Her reasoning reminds me of the guy who looks at black-on-black crime and says, that's just them doing what they do. Of course, if that callous person were me or you, we would be canceled faster than a Tinder date with Andrew Cuomo. But thanks to liberal privilege, Whoopi hangs on, which is fine since she apologized, but not before digging an even deeper hole than the one in her head.
She started with outrage, veered into empathy, made a pit stop at guilt, and somehow circled back to confusion, all without making a clear point. It was an emotional roller coaster with no safety bars, and the only thing viewers could do was hang on and hope it ended soon. They didn't stop at her argument, they went after the entire style of how she delivered it. That slow, serious voice.
Even as dumb as the she just said, that she has an opportunity tomorrow
They won't fire her over that.
No.
She'll have an opportunity tomorrow to come on and fix it. Will she? She won't. But that's the thing about this country. Black, white, gay, straight, short, tall. Everyone's going to get hit with something. But the beauty about this country is there's always an opportunity for you to better yourself. So shame on you, Whoopi. Play the black card somewhere else because the don't work here in America.
Gutfeld said it sounded like she was reading an IKEA instruction manual, but for feelings. Tyrus chimed in with a straight-faced jab, saying her concern ran so deep it looped back around to, "I'm not sure." Like a kiddie pool pretending to be the ocean. That's when it became clear they weren't just mocking what she said. They were exposing how empty it all was underneath the performance. Then came one of the funniest moments of the whole takedown. Tyrus leaned in with a sarcastic "thank you" and claimed, jokingly, that in all the times he's tied someone to a caress, Whoopi vaguely implied happened to gay people in the US. He never once asked about their sexuality. Gutfeld jumped in with an exaggerated Happy Pride Month, and the panel burst into laughter.
To Whoopi Goldberg, Iranians living under an oppressive regime don't really have it that bad. Despite all the human rights abuses, Iranians might actually have it better than Black Americans.
And it's slow.
But let's just remember, too, the Iranians literally throw gay people off of buildings. They don't adhere to basic human rights.
Listen, here's the thing. Let's not do that, because if we start with that.
Okay, and no matter how hard the other hosts tried to reason with Whoopi Goldberg, reminding her of how women are treated in Iran, nothing would stop her from continuing one of the most...
It was brutal, cutting, and ridiculous all at once, but the message was sharp. Whoopi's comparisons weren't just wrong, they were insultingly lazy. They turned the whole moment into a mock celebration of logic, parodying her claims as if they were punchlines in a comedy sketch. Then, Tyrus threw in his own jab about how being Black in America apparently means getting phone calls from white people whenever he speaks poking at Whoopi's twisted idea of oppression. The absurdity of her narrative was laid bare, and they weren't going to let it go unchecked. The way they broke it down, her argument wasn't just flawed, it was offensive to people who've actually suffered under real oppression. People who've been jailed, silenced, beaten, or executed for simply speaking out. Meanwhile, Whoopi sits on $1 million stage, talking over her co-hosts, interrupting with wild takes, and expecting applause for it. And that's when Tyrus nailed the point. In Iran, if a Black woman like Whoopi interrupted people on TV the way she does, she wouldn't just get criticized, she'd be stoned. That comparison wasn't just a rhetorical punch. It was a knockout. Once that punch landed, they weren't pulling back. Tyrus leaned into the absurdity of Whoopi's position with a level of sarcasm so dry, it practically cracked the screen. He called her logic moral gymnastics, where she wants the gold medal for compassion but can't land a single move without falling flat. Gutfeld added that watching Whoopi's takes was like watching someone walk a tightrope in clown shoes. There's no balance, no grace, just a constant stumble into nonsense. Then they turned the focus on the audience senat, the in-studio clappers, but the viewers at home. Gutfeld painted a picture of millions watching Whoopi with raised eyebrows, confused expressions, and that universal thought, did she really just say that? Meanwhile, Tyrus broke it down in emoji form: concerned face, confused face, smug face, repeat. It was the same cycle every time Whoopi made one of her deep comments, fake concern followed by empty outrage. And that's where Gutfeld delivered one of the coldest lines. She said Whoopi's style isn't about meaning, it's about shaping perception. She talks in a way that sounds serious, but when you break it down, there's no real message, just performance. Then they tackled her emotional delivery, those quiet, I'm deeply troubled moments that sound like she's breaking world news, but really just signal she's out of real things to say. Tyrus joked it felt like a high school guidance counselor trying to go viral. They weren't just mocking, they were pulling apart every fake fiber of her television persona. As the roast continued, Gutfeld and Tyrus shifted into full-on deconstruction mode. Now, they weren't just picking on Whoopi, they were analyzing the formula she seemed to follow every time she tried to make a serious point. It always started soft, with a little hesitation, then slowly built into this dramatic peak, like she was auctioning off outrage. Gutfeld nailed it by saying it sounded like an emotional crescendo with no substance, just noise wrapped in performance. Tyrus followed up with one of the most savage analogies of the night. He said if you're going to create drama, at least throw a pillow. But Whoopi's moments weren't comforting. They were awkward. No logic, no facts, just a whirlwind of self-righteous energy with no destination. Then came the part that really stung. They compared The View itself to a medical museum of political misfires. Instead of showcasing ideas or real debate, they joked, it's become a stage for weird takes and even weirder delivery. No facts, just feelings. No arguments, just overreactions. It was like watching a carnival sideshow where the bearded lady has a microphone and thinks she's a political expert. They didn't hold back. Gutfeld pointed out how Whoopi kept reaching for comparisons so exaggerated they sounded like bad sci-fi plots. Tyrus tossed in that comparing American problems to Iranian oppression was like saying ants and hurricanes are the same valid only if your world is a picnic. It was scathing, and they still had more to say. Then came the precision hits their breakdown of how Whoopi uses vague comparisons to sound deep, but ends up saying absolutely nothing. Gutfeld compared her to someone trying to walk a tightrope over context while wearing clown shoes. One misstep after another, and by the time she got to the point if there even was one, the audience had already stopped buying it. Tyrus, always ready with a punchline, followed like a comedic echo saying, "We're not on the edge, you're on the edge of coherence." And it landed. It wasn't just about this one episode. It was about a pattern, the way Whoopi delivers these dramatic takes that feel big but mean nothing. They even imagined a wish list. What if Whoopi picked a single take and just stuck with it? The idea alone was laughable. She bounces from point to point like she's editing her thoughts live on air except without the delete button. The mockery wasn't cruel, it was clinical. They weren't just throwing shade, they were diagnosing the performance. Tyrus joked that her consistency was so far gone, it must have been left at home with her backup plan. And just when they hinted at a let's be real moment, they yanked the rug right back out. Because being real would mean acknowledging when a take is bad. And on that stage, that kind of honesty doesn't exist. Not when the goal is to sound enlightened, even if what's being said makes zero sense. Then they went even deeper into the mechanics of how Whoopi builds her moments of serious concern. You know the tone. Slow voice, heavy sigh, dramatic pause. But Gutfeld wasn't fooled. He said it's like every meltdown starts with, "Let me be clear," and ends with, "Oops." It's the kind of fake sincerity that gets served cold, with all the emotional flavor of a DMV announcement. Tyrus added that her performances feel like she's trying to read breaking news off a fortune cookie, except the cookie's empty. He compared her to someone discovering basic headlines for the first time and acting shocked, as if saying, "I'm deeply troubled," adds weight to hollow words. Then they broke down the structure of her rants, the same rising tempo, the same emotional overreach, the same "this is about humanity" spin. But every time, it crashed back down into confusion. Gutfeld nailed it with a perfect image. Watching Whoopi speak was like a drama teacher trying to stage a Greek tragedy with a script made of buzzwords. Tyrus cracked that if you've seen one of her monologues, you've seen them all. All that changes is the lighting and the music cue. The performance doesn't evolve, it just repeats, over and over. A loop of outrage without any new ideas. And the scary part? That formula still gets applause because it sounds smart, even when it isn't. But Gutfeld and Tyrus weren't done. They peeled back the next layer, the performance of depth. That exaggerated seriousness Whoopi uses to make herself sound like a moral guide. Gutfeld compared it to someone reading horoscopes at a funeral dramatic tone, zero meaning. It wasn't about saying something useful, it was about sounding like it mattered. Tyrus followed up with a brutal line, saying her speeches felt like Oscar acceptance speeches for roles no one actually played. All pathos, no plot. Then they hit the phase they called pseudo-philosophy, where Whoopi starts talking in vague, wise-sounding phrases that loop around until they collapse on themselves. Gutfeld joked it was like a fortune cookie written by an intern on their last day. And then they turned up the heat. They mocked the way Whoopi, once a Hollywood actress, now acts like the moral compass of daytime television. Tyrus threw in a jab about her being an ethical meteorologist, trying to forecast right and wrong with the accuracy of a magic 8-ball. Then came the stinger. Gutfeld slammed one of Whoopi's most tone-deaf comments where she questioned what Hitler meant by master race, downplaying the Holocaust as just white-on-white violence. It was so off base, so historically blind, that it stopped even the laughter for a moment. Tyrus pointed out that if anyone else had said something like that, they'd be canceled on the spot. But Whoopi? She gets to apologize and keep going. That's when the conversation shifted straight into the dangerous comfort of liberal privilege. And that's where they really drilled in the idea that Whoopi operates under a different set of rules. Gutfeld and Tyrus didn't hold back. They laid it out. If anyone else had said what she did, especially about race or the Holocaust, they'd be out of a job by sunset. But Whoopi? She gets a pass, every time. It's not just about being wrong, it's about never being held accountable for it. Tyrus mocked her noble victim act, calling it a tightrope walk between being the misunderstood truth teller and the wise old oracle, even though most of what she says folds under basic scrutiny. He even mimed holding up an invisible Oscar and handed it to her for Best Dramatic Performance while pretending not to want the spotlight. And Gutfeld? He deadpanned, "She's exhausted. She'll need to rest her righteousness until the next episode." Then came the line that summed up the entire roast. Gutfeld said, listening to Whoopi talk felt like someone yelling into a canyon and then clapping at their own echo. No real impact, just noise bouncing off the walls. Tyrus doubled down, saying it's like a TED Talk where the teleprompter just says, "Feel something." And people do. They feel, but they don't think. Because in Whoopi's world, it's not about clarity or truth. It's about creating a mood, delivering just enough emotion for the audience to believe it's deep, even when there's absolutely nothing there. Then it got even weirder. Right in the middle of her already messy argument, Whoopi suddenly drifted into a completely unrelated tangent tone of those off-topic side quests that feel like walking into your kitchen and finding a pair of shoes in the fridge. Gutfeld called it accidental poetry, confusing, passive-aggressive, and absolutely pointless. Tyrus leaned in with a deadpan jab, saying her takes come with bonus levels no one asked for. Just when you think she's making a point, she jumps into something else, like a bad improv scene with no ending. That's when they turned surgical. They zoomed in on how Whoopi will sometimes drop a comment so vague and bland, it somehow sounds deep, like when someone stares at modern art and says, "It speaks to me," even though it's just a red dot on a white canvas, and she'll do it with complete confidence, as if the lack of clarity is the genius. Gutfeld said she's mastered the art of saying everything and nothing in one inhale. Tyrus nailed it with a perfect image. Her opinions are like scented candles' nice vibe, but no actual light, just air-freshened confusion. But the kicker? Gutfeld and Tyrus pointed out how audiences eat it up. People don't want to feel dumb, so they nod along. They act like it all makes sense, even if none of it does. Because if you don't get it, then you're the problem. Not Whoopi, not the logic, you. That led straight into one of the most savage parts of the entire takedown, when they exposed the fake bravery behind Whoopi's commentary. Gutfeld pointed out that she wasn't saying anything bold or risky. In fact, everything she said was just echoing what everyone else on The View already believed. Tyrus sarcastically wiped a fake tear and said, "We'll never forget her courage," in repeating the group chat out loud. It hit like a brick wrapped in laughter. They called it exactly what it was: echo chamber gymnastics. She flips, she spins, she lands right where she started smack, in the middle of the applause. Gutfeld broke it down perfectly. This wasn't moral leadership, it was theater, just expensive lighting and low expectations. And that's the formula. Be loud, act outraged, say the safe things that sound edgy but aren't. Then they destroyed the idea that a platform equals wisdom. Tyrus compared it to taking medical advice from someone who once played a doctor on TV. Just because you've got a microphone doesn't mean your takes are intelligent. It just means you've got volume. And when Whoopi started bringing in history clumsily, referencing Hitler and the Holocaust, everything unraveled completely. They said it was like throwing a banana peel onto a runway mid-landing. She tried to be profound, but instead trivialized one of history's darkest moments. It wasn't just a bad take, it was a crash landing into cluelessness. And that was the final nail. The grand performance was empty. All spotlight, no soul. And finally, they pulled apart the structure behind her entire delivery, the rhythm, the pacing, the dramatic pauses that try to build tension where there's no real message. Gutfeld described it like a symphony written entirely in wind chimes. It sounds dramatic, it sparkles, it rattles, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just noise, dressed up as importance. Tyrus added the perfect line to close it out. If you've seen one dramatic Whoopi monologue, you've seen them all. Just change the lighting and the soundtrack. The formula never changes. Start with vague sadness, add a sprinkle of outrage, toss in a half-remembered historical reference, and top it off with a bold stare into the camera. But there's no truth in it, just the illusion of wisdom. And the saddest part? Gutfeld said it's not the takedown that's most entertaining, it's watching people pretend the Emperor's outfit is high fashion. That forced applause. That nervous agreement. That refusal to admit the point was nonsense. It's performance wrapped in politics and politics wrapped in performance. And Whoopi Goldberg, standing at the center of it, keeps doing it because no one on that stage has the guts to say, "What are you even talking about?" If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments. See you on the next one.